for Friday, June 16, 2017. This morning, the brief will be done by the Minister of State, the Honorable Joseph Harmon. Mr. Harmon.
Thank you, Mr. Archer. Ladies and gentlemen of the media, good morning. This brief covers the matters which were discussed at Cabinet at its meeting on Tuesday, the 13th of June, 2017. At that meeting, His Excellency, President David Granger, briefed Cabinet that after a discussion on Monday, the 12th of June, 2017, with the Honorable Dr. Rupert Roopnarine, Minister of Education, it was agreed that Dr. Roopnarine will be reassigned to the Ministry of Public Service, to be the Minister of Public Service. Dr. Roopnarine's new appointment took effect from the 15th of June 2017, and he remains a valued member of the Cabinet and a member of the National Assembly. Cabinet was further briefed that a department in the Ministry of the Presidency will be created to oversee the implementation of innovations and reforms in the education system. The minister within the Ministry of Education, General Nicolette Henry, will perform the functions of the office of the Minister of Education until further notice. Cabinet was briefed by the Minister of Public Telecommunications, and a presentation was made by a delegation from Estonia, led by Dr. Arvo Ott, the Executive Director and Chairman of the Management of the Board of the E-Governance Academy of Estonia. This briefing on the visit by Dr. Ott was made possible by the Inter-American Development Bank, and his presentation, Dr. Ott's presentation, covered 12 subject areas, and these were the history of e-governance academy and the Estonian government e-government framework, the purpose, competencies, and current projects of the e-governance academy, governance efficiency, economic competitiveness, the e-way of life, the aim of e-governance, the examples of economic effects of e-governance, the e-government central coordinating unit, the legal framework, the legislation, the system architecture, and lessons learned. Cabinet, after seeking some clarification on the implementation and timelines, thanked the team from Estonia for their presentation. Cabinet approved the appointment of members of the boards of hinterland electricity entities for a period of 2 years with effect from June 1st, 2017. The boards appointed were the Lethem Power Company, Mrs. Tina Edwards, identified as the chairperson, Mrs. Maxine Welch, Mr. William Tony, Mr. Terence Boston, a representative from the Guyana Power and Light, and a representative of the parliamentary opposition. The Madhya Power Company, Mr. Timothy Jr., identified as chairperson, Mr. Richard Sinclair, Mrs. Raj Kumari Bancroft, Mrs. Maribel Thomas, and a member of the parliamentary opposition. Port Kaituma Power Company, Mrs. Marjorie Jeffrey, identified as the chairperson, Mrs. Charlene Williams, Mr. Fitz Duke, Mrs. Amanda Abraham, and a member of the parliamentary opposition. The Kokwani Utilities, Inc., Mr. Byron Lewis, identified as the chairperson, Mrs. Danette Jeffrey, Mr. Odwin Rutherford, a representative of Rusal, Mr. Elroy Adolph, and a member of the parliamentary opposition. The Linden Utility Company, Inc., Mr. Tracy Johnson, chairperson, Mr. Elwin Marshall, Mr. Mortimer Mingo, Mr. Leslie Gonzalez, a GPL representative, and a member of the parliamentary opposition. The Lethem, Madhya, Port Kaituma, and Linden Power Companies and the Kokwani Utilities, Inc. now fall under the purview of the Hinterland Electricity Company, Inc., HECI. HECI is a subsidiary of NISIL with responsibility for the expansion and upgrading of electricity supply systems across the hinterland, with a vision to provide every hinterland community with access to affordable and sustainable electricity service. The action plan for the implementation of a metric system in Guyana was approved by Cabinet. This metrification plan was prepared by the Guyana National Bureau of Standards to promote the use of international system of units countrywide. Cabinet approved of the implementation of the system. Cabinet has approved the participation of the Ministry of Public Telecommunications at a Caribbean Postal Union Conference and Ministerial Council meeting to be held on June 19th to the 23rd in Guadeloupe. The conference will bring together ministers with responsibility for posts, the heads and Postmaster General in the region to focus on the development of the new Postal Union and implementation of future projects with the UPU. The Honorable Catherine Hughes, Minister of Public Telecommunications, and Mrs. Karen Brown, Postmistress General, will attend the conference and meeting. Minister Hughes will make a presentation on the inter-island transport system challenges at this meeting. In fact, it is titled that, but the idea is to make a presentation that will deal with the challenges of interstate transportation systems, because, as you know, Guyana is not an island. Guyana will attend the meeting, a meeting between CARIFORUM ministers and the European Union Commissioner for Development, Mr. Nevin Mimica, to be held in Cancun, Mexico, from June 22nd to the 23rd, 2017. This meeting will update CARIFORUM countries on the European Union views on the type of agreement, regional enlargement, and institutional arrangements in the process towards a renewed agreement that will replace the ACP-EU Cotonou Agreement, which expires on February 29, 2020. CARIFORUM ministers will also be able to present priorities and views and engage in bilateral discussions with the EU Commissioner on Development. Guyana's ambassador to Belgium and the European Union, His Excellency David Hales, will represent Guyana at the meeting. Cabinet has approved Guyana's participation at the subcommittee meeting on environment and climate under the Guyana-Suriname Cooperation Council. The meeting to be held in Nikeri, Suriname on June 22nd will address areas of cooperation on the environment between Guyana and Suriname, including the phasing out of the use of mercury in mining areas, Suriname's proposal for a coastal monitoring framework on the impact of climate change, and the smuggling of wildlife across borders will also be discussed. Mrs. Ndb Schweiers, Director of the Department of the Environment, Minister of the Presidency, will lead Guyana's delegation, which will include Mrs. Odesi Davis, Deputy Commissioner, Protected Areas Commission, Mr. Kemraj Parsram, the Executive Director Acting of the Environmental Protection Agency, and Mr. Steve Chichester, Principal Environmental Health Officer, Ministry of Public Health. Guyana will attend regional workshops on biodiversity information database capacity enhancement and enhanced access to biodiversity data and information in the Caribbean on June 19th to the 22nd and June 22nd to the 23rd, respectively, in Trinidad and Tobago. The workshops, facilitated by the Global Biodiversity Information Facility, will seek to ensure that all selected projects acquire the necessary technical capacity for successful implementation and to demonstrate the benefits of collaboration among Caribbean countries and globally in the open sharing of electronic biodiversity data to further research and policy objectives. Mr. Ray Smith, Environmental Protection Officer 2, Biological Resources Management and Program Areas, EPA, and Mrs. Diana Fernandez, Environmental Officer 2, Technical Secretariat, EPA, will represent Guyana at the workshops. Guyana will be represented at the 4th meeting of Improved Access to Justice in the Caribbean, Impacts Justice, Project Steering Committee on June 14th in Barbados. The meeting will provide information and guidance on the general direction of the project and review outcomes, strategies, and plans in the context of changing policies of regional governments. Senior Parliamentary Counsel, Mrs. Joanne Bond, from the Attorney General's Chamber, will represent Guyana at that meeting. Cabinet approved Guyana's attendance at the first technical meeting of the United Nations Economic Commission for Latin America and the Caribbean region, the International Comparisons Program, in Chile on June 22nd to the 29th. The ICP, this is the International Comparison Program, is a worldwide statistical partnership to collect comparative price data and compile expenditure values of countries' gross domestic product and to estimate purchasing power of parties. Senior Statistician, Trade and Prices Division, Mrs. Shelfra Torrington, will represent Guyana at the meeting. Cabinet has approved Guyana's participation at the Bridge to the Future training program in China on July 11th to 20th, 2017. The Bridge to the Future is a training program for young leaders which aims to promote and deepen bilateral cooperation in areas of youth innovation, employment, and entrepreneurship. Mr. Lyndon Charles, Legal Assistant, Frontiers Department, Ministry of Foreign Affairs, will be Guyana's representative at this training. Cabinet has noted the award of contracts by the procurement entities and the National Procurement and Tender Administration Board as follows. For the construction of cell number 1 and leachate management system at Hagsbosch Sanitary Landfill, a contract in the sum of $74 million. In fact, it's an increase. The contract originally was for $74 million, and so there's an increase now of $20 million, taking the contract to $94,721,000. That's a contract that had been previously awarded to S. Jagmohan Hardware and Construction Service. So that's an increase. For the upgrading of Farm Access Road and the construction of timber bridges at President College, Golden Grove, East Coast, Demerara, Region Number 4, a contract in the sum of $29,700,000 awarded to Guy America Construction. for the rehabilitation of miscellaneous roads in Region Number 6, Ministry of Public Infrastructure. Lot 1, New Street, Cumberland, East Kanji. Contract in the sum of $37,920,000 awarded to Anirudh Ramcharitar firm. Lot 2, the main access road, Letterkenny. The sum of $18,642,000, contract awarded to Anirudh Ramcharitar firm. Lot 3, Belvedere New Housing Scheme Road, Network, Belvedere, contract in the sum of $44,034,000, awarded to Chung's Global Enterprise. Lot 4, First Street, number 54, Village, the contract in the sum of $14,014,000, awarded to Associated Construction Services. Lot number 5, Main Access Road, Bloomfield, a contract in the sum of $30,813,000, awarded to Chung's Global Enterprise. For the rehabilitation and construction of hinterland roads in Region Number 7, from Corral to Bokhal, contract in the sum of $98 million, awarded to International Import and Supplies. Lot number 2, Bartica Pataro Road to St. Mary's Quarries, a contract in the sum of $18,724,000, awarded to Garbaran Construction. Lot number 3, Isano Road, Phase 1, White Hill, for the sum of $92 million. Contract awarded to MMC Inc. Lot 4, Bartica Pataro Road, Phase 1, the Shirima Bypass, for the sum of $52,585,000. Contract awarded to MMC Inc. For the rehabilitation of hinterland airstrips, Lot 1, Ikeraku Bottom Airstrip, Region Number 7, for the sum of $59,101,000, contract awarded to BK International Inc. Lot 2, Barometer Airstrip, Region Number 1, a contract in the sum of $70 million, awarded to Mohammed Ramzan Ali Khan Contracting. For the rehabilitation of distribution network and service upgrade in Port Kaituma, Region Number 1, to the Guyana Water Incorporated, a contract in the sum of $26,193,000, awarded to AMIC General Contracting Services. For the supply of equipment, material, and labor for the rehabilitation of potable water wells in Region Number 6, and these are the wells that will be rehabilitated in the region. Number 1 at Eversham, the second one at number 63 Village, the third one at number 47 Village, the fourth at Firish, the fifth at number 96 Village, and the sixth at number 57 Village. These are contracts in the sum of $66,866,000, and the contract was awarded to Water and Oil Well Services Company Limited of Trinidad. For the supply and installation of grid-connected solar photovoltaic systems on 57 government buildings for the Guyana Energy Authority, a contract in the sum of $35,323,000, awarded to MECO Services Deutschland GmbH, Germany. It's a German company. For the supply of spares and maintenance of buoys and beacons in the sum of $29,509,000, contract awarded to Brenco Shipping and Trading Company Limited. For the implementation of UNTAD, UNCTAD, UNTAD's Customs and ESU plus ASYPM solution for the Guyana Revenue Authority, a contract in the sum of United States dollars, $4,500,000. This contract awarded to the United Nations Conference on Trade and Development. This software solution is an automated system for managing customs data, which aids in the efficiency of tax processing, prevention and detection of fraud, expedition of the clearance of goods, among other things. It accepts the submissions of electronic documents and includes warehousing and risk management modules. The software also has single window capabilities, that is, when a document or transaction is submitted to the Guyana Revenue Authority, the software gathers data from other agencies that may be required for the processing of that transaction. It also eliminates the need for the manual retrieval of documents across agencies. The software will be launched in January of 2018. And these are two additional contracts for the supply of frozen fish for the Guyana Defense Force, Global Seafood Distributors, $44,987,000, and for the supply of dry and fresh ration for the Ministry of Indigenous Peoples Affairs. Contracts in the sum as follows: $10,714,000 to general distributors, $19,660,000 to Paradise Foods Inc., Paradise Foods Products, and $3,063,000 to Guyana's Green Grocery. Then finally, the sum of $5,108,000 awarded to OM's Fresh Fruit, Vegetables, and Catering. Ladies and gentlemen, that brings me to the end of the matters which were dealt with at Cabinet at its last meeting on Tuesday, 13th of June, 2017. I now take your questions.
The Working People's Alliance as a political party was not consulted before the decision was taken to have Dr. Rupin Ryan moved to another section of the executive structure.
I believe Dr. Rupin Ryan explained the process of consultation with the party. But I can say to you that before Dr. Rupin Ryan was moved, that the president did consult with the leader, the chairperson of the Working People's Alliance, Mr. Desmond Trotman, as well as the leader of the Alliance for Change.
Will the meeting that has been asked for by the party be held to further discuss this matter and the concerns about the consultative process?
Yes, in fact, yes. The meeting will be held on Saturday at 10 o'clock at State House, as was requested by the executive of the Working People's Alliance.
My final question, if you'll permit, on this matter. The WPA seems to be suggesting that their expectation is that they should be given a ministerial, a ministry to run, as opposed to just being part of the Ministry of the Presidency. What is your reaction to this?
Well, I would wait on the views expressed by the Working People's Alliance at the meeting, which is scheduled for Saturday, and we will discuss that matter there fully.
say if any permission were given for ministers of the government to seek treatment in Ireland? And as recent, um, one minister visited Ireland and medical expenditure of approximately 16,000 US. Can you say if the who is footing that bill?
Well, basically, yes, ministers have sought permission to travel to Ireland for medical treatment. And so far, those bills are dealt with by the ministers themselves. Currently, we are negotiating and we've gone a very far way in establishing a medical insurance policy which will take care of those matters in the future.
Why Ireland is opposed to, say, the Caribbean or the United States, anywhere close by?
Well, the point is that if you are sick, you want to get what you consider to be the best possible medical facilities. And in the opinion of the ministers who have gone, that is where they can get the best treatment for whatever is the ailment that they suffer.
And what's the cost?
Well, it will be different depending on what is the issue that the minister has to deal with. But as I said, right now these are expenses borne by them, and later on, when the insurance policy kicks in, then the insurance policy will deal with those matters.
Adam Harris again of the brief. There is a lot of noise about this government displaying racist tendencies by appointing only black permanent secretaries. Would you care to comment on that issue, sir?
Well, I don't know there's a lot of noise, but I know there's one gentleman who's been writing about this matter, and he seems to have been, I know he keeps writing and writing and writing. I responded to the matter last week, but it seems as if you want to have a response on air on this issue. And so I will give it to you. The permanent secretaries that are in the system right now are persons who are now part of what we call a new public service. When we came into office, it was clearly our intention to ensure that the quality of service provided by the public service was at a level which we can be happy and we can be proud of. And so several things happened. I have to go over this so you understand the context in which these things are placed. Several things happened. The first was that we commissioned a commission of inquiry to look into the terms and conditions of service and the public service generally. So that commission of inquiry made certain recommendations, and some of the recommendations we've actually started implementing. Then at the level of the entrance to the public service, we felt that that level required special treatment, and therefore the Public Service Staff College was established, which dealt with entrance to the public service. So currently, we have, I believe, about 50-something young people who are in training on that program. In the middle, that is to say, the levels between the entrance and the permanent secretaries themselves, we've started several training programs which cater to the developmental needs of the public service and the importance of improving capacity and knowledge of the permanent public servants. Into all of this, we looked at the levels of the permanent secretaries. And at that level, what we found was that there are some persons in the system who needed some upgrading training, and as such, we got some of them, at least 3 or 4 of these permanent secretaries, on a program which is called a Caribbean Leadership Program. The other permanent secretaries who are there now were all in the system. And so what we said was that we have to give the public servants upward mobility. And therefore, whenever any permanent secretary moved, we looked internally in the public service for the senior persons who had been there serving and had the qualification, and we moved them up. So at no point in time did we ever seek to have any ethnic consideration in persons who are in these positions. And if you examine that list carefully that Mr. Sesnarine gave you, you will find that all of these persons were either permanent secretaries or deputy permanent secretaries at the time. So I want to debunk that nonsense that Mr. Sesnarine is going on with, and that he should examine things carefully before he continues on this charade of trying to create a new bogey, as if to say that this government is ethnic and ethnic cleansing, and we're only appointing certain people to positions. He started off by basically acknowledging that the only person who is not, in fact, what he started off on this premise was that anybody who is not Indian is African. That is how he started off. And so anybody else in that mix of permanent secretaries that were there who was not an Indian was considered to be black. And he should examine things carefully, because some of these things affect people. And they're very upset and annoyed when they are branded in a certain way by people who write and do not do their research properly before they write.
Minister Harmon, the Samuel Newsroom. Regarding the reassignment matter, could you say what's the next step to find either a replacement, a new junior education minister, or if Minister Henry will go back to being junior and you will find someone to be the substantive education minister?
Well, as it stands right now, Minister Henry is performing the functions of the Minister of Education, and that is the function which he will perform until such time that the President, in his deliberate judgment, considers that there is some other arrangement that needs to be put in place. Yes.
And good morning, it's Voice of Fraser Stafford News. Just recently, it was revealed that the Army was conducting an operation at the Kaichou National Park to identify and remove minors. Could you say why it is that the Army was needed to enforce that area, particularly since the issue of mining probably would fall under the GGMC and maybe the Protected Areas Commission?
The GDF operation was part of a joint operation, and that operation included the Protected Areas Commission, the Ghana Geology and Mines Commission, and the Ghana Police Force. The Army provided the kind of security that was necessary for these other entities to do their work. So it was not a purely Army operation. It was, as I said, a joint operation. It was well planned. The information provided by the Protected Areas Commission showed clearly what the violations were taking place in that area, and it was based on that, the analysis of that information and the intelligence which was provided that allowed for the operation to be mounted and dismounted.
Just to follow up, is the Army authorized to detain a person who is found in that area? And secondly, do you, or should I say the government, is there a response on the detention of two persons, one of whom is a media worker?
One of whom is a what?
Media worker.
A media worker. I believe that the Army did give an explanation for this, and I believe that the explanation was a reasonable one in the circumstance. I have not gone beyond it to question why this worker was detained or why that person was detained, but the sense I got from the Army's report was that the person was in an area where he should not have been, and that they were conducting operations in that area, and that it was unsafe for the persons to be in the area at the time when the military was conducting operations.
But just for clarity, can the army detain somebody? Is there a law that
Of
says that they
course,
can?
the army can detain somebody in an area that is an operation area. It's a limited detention until such time that they hand it over to the civil authorities. So yes, that can be done.
Jarman, TVG News. On the reassignment of Dr. Ryan, the WPA has said that it was called and the chairman went and was told that a decision had already been made to transfer Dr. Ryan. Is this the consultations you're referring to?
The details of consultation and the concerns that have been expressed by the party will be dealt with adequately at the meeting on Saturday. I'm saying to you that the president consulted with the leaders of those two parties, and in fact, consultation is defined in a certain way in the Constitution, and meaningful consultation is also defined in a certain way. The importance is that the parties were contacted by His Excellency the President and advised about the movement before the movement took place.
Minister Wright and James, Nightly News. Minister, just a clarification and one question. You said Dr. Rupert Ryan will be the new Minister of Public Service. I think you has previously held responsibility for the public service, if I'm correct. Is this like a creation of a new ministry because we didn't have a designated Minister of Public Service? You're Minister of State with responsibility for public service.
Yes.
So is it like a new ministry will be created? And secondly, you said Minister Henry will perform the duties until further notice. Does the government believe Minister Henry can pull off such a critical ministry? Because we have seen many persons complain of the minister handling of the junior position. A few notable blunders, of course.
Well, first of all, let me say that His Excellency the President has expressed the confidence in the minister to perform in that capacity where she's been asked to perform. Secondly, you are told, I said earlier, that a department that will be responsible for innovation and reforms in the education sector will be established under the Ministry of the Presidency. What that does is that it takes away the responsibility for driving innovation, driving reforms, and it puts it under the handling of an expert, a technical set of persons who are being identified for that purpose. So that the functions of the Office of the Minister of Education, some of those functions would have been removed and be dealt with by a special group of persons. In particular, coming out of a commission of inquiry into the state of education in Guyana, and a preliminary report which was presented by the commissioners and discussed at the ministerial meeting last month. So that these are some changes that are taking place. Dr. Rupert Narayan has been designated. In fact, the instrument which he received and was handed to the National Assembly is the Minister of Public Service. Right? So, you know, previously there was a Ministry of Public Service, but in the new configuration, it became a department under the Ministry of the Presidency. Minister Rupert Narayan has been designated Minister of the Public Service, and so I am firmly of the view that Minister Rupert Narayan will be able to exercise full authority over the public service.
Just a follow-up, if I can. You said a group of specialists will oversee the reform and whatever.
Reform and innovation.
Right. So, Minister Henry, would the minister be given a ministerial salary, and then these group of specialists would be given an additional salary to perform the function which
the minister is already a minister. Right. The minister is paid as a minister, right. And so that is what is going to be. These persons who I'm talking about, these are now specialists who, based on what we saw coming out of the Commission of Inquiry on Education and the urgent steps that needed to be taken, that is why that was done. And let me go back a little bit to tell you that last year, after the grade 6 examination results came out, we recognized that there was a very serious problem with English and mathematics. And so there was an urgent and immediate intervention on the part of government to deal with those two specific areas. $144 million was expended on dealing with an emergency intervention for that ministry, for that particular purpose. And we trust that the results coming out of these new examinations will bear fruit on it. But on a closer examination of the issues, it will recognize that an emergency intervention was not enough. We needed to go a little further. And basically what you will see is that there'll be some further innovations, some further reforms that will deal with those particular issues. Yes.
So again, Larry Kaicha News. We have granted the production license to ExxonMobil, and there's a debate going on with the local content policy on the draft document that's there. Is the government happy with the deal that we've gotten with, or the arrangement that we've gotten with ExxonMobil? And secondly, when was the last time that cabinet was updated with regards to the operations of NISIL?
Well, cabinet is continuously updated on matters in relation to issues in the ministerial sectors. NISIL falls under the Ministry of Finance, and the Minister of Finance regularly updates cabinet on issues within his sector. So there is nothing special about NISIL. If there are issues that have to come up, they are dealt with. For example, we recently had to deal with the issue of the Atlantic Hotel Inc., which is the Marriott. That was a NISIL issue. We are dealing now with the appointment of boards in the hinterland under the hinterland electrification program. These are all elements of NISIL that cabinet has dealt with. So that any special features of any of these entities under the minister's responsibility will be dealt with at cabinet as is necessary. So we don't go looking beyond the ministers and say, let me have this or let me have that. The ministers have full authority to bring matters to cabinet. Now, in relation to the debate that is going on about the license issued to Exxon, I've seen statements about whether 2% is enough, 5% is enough, and so on. I think that is something that will go on, but I have the full confidence that our Minister of Natural Resources has gotten the best advice possible in the circumstance, and that in the interests of Guyana, that whatever agreement that we arrive at with ExxonMobil would have benefited not just from local input, but input at the international level, especially where best practices are concerned. The minister was at pains to describe this process last night in the National Assembly, and I believe that he had done an excellent job in explaining what has been done.
With regards to
I take the
royalty.
two last questions. Yes.
With regards to the royalty rates, on average, international royalty rates that countries would get from oil companies ranges from 10% upwards. So would you still hold the view that 2% is adequate? And two, the Permanent Secretary for the Ministry of Education has said that government has no policy to withhold teacher salaries, traveling teacher salaries. The REO, this obviously contradicts the REO's position for Region 5. So will any action, or what will be the government's next step on this issue? Will there be any action for the REO for maybe overstepping its authority?
Well, I believe last week again, this was a matter which I dealt with at length, and I did indicate to you, having explained the situation, that a team had been dispatched to Region 5 to deal with that issue and to deal with it to finality. The team, in fact, did go, and the team addressed the issue. The decision of the REO was suspended, and the ministry has undertook to do a total evaluation of these issues. As I said at that meeting, the matter came up at the Public Accounts Committee, and the REO was required to give an answer as to why certain payments were made previously, not even under his watch. And what he undertook to do was to go and see, well, why is this happening, and how could I put a stop into it? So I think that we should not be so rash to go and say, well, the REO overstepped his bounds and so on. He has to give, he's the accounting officer for that region. He has to answer to the Public Accounts Committee of the National Assembly. And so it is important that when permanent secretaries go there, that certain observations are made, certain recommendations are made, that they have the strength to go back to their ministries and correct those situations. That's one. The other one about percentages and so on, you have all sorts of percentages going about the place. I won't want to say, I've never heard about 10% and upwards. Must be some view that is expressed by an individual or some person. But clearly, as I said, we have been given best possible advice, and every situation has to be dealt with on its merit. Our situation might not be the same as another country's situation. What I can say to you is that I believe, I have the confidence that Minister Trotman and the personnel in the Ministry of Natural Resources, that they are doing their best, and I believe that the people of Guyana will benefit from the work that is being done at that ministry. Last question.
Mr. Harmon, last week you had indicated that the president needed to have an opportunity to look at the Kanu report. Could you say if he has taken a look at it, and are you now in a position to give us some specifics on the recommendations made?
Well, I can say that the president has made some recommendations on the report. He has sent that recommendation to the Minister of Public Security for action to be taken by the Minister of Public Security. I would not want to basically play the hand of the minister, but the minister has been given some clear guidance as to what should be done, and I believe he's taking action in that regard.
Any of that guidance pertains to Mr. Singh being removed from office?
That would be one of the guidance.
Let's say you promised yesterday to tell me how much Mr. Curtin has been paid and what has he done so far in terms of searching for investments in Gaisuku. Which Curtin? Yes.
You want to take me down now another explanation of a Gaisuku?
No, only if you want to go there. Right?
No, because if I want to answer that question, I will have to go there.
Okay,
because what is happening is that Mr. Curtin has been asked to look at finding possible interests for the divestment of Gaisuku. His arrangement with the government is for payment of reasonable expenses in relation to travel and accommodation, but not to exceed in any period of time 2,000 United States dollars. The period of time was January to June of 2016. What we will find, we will analyze what has been done, and in keeping, yes, this one, and in keeping with our state paper, which had been laid in the National Assembly, and I'd encourage you to have a look at that state paper, which basically points out the government's position in Gaisuku. And in our position, you will find that certain things have to be done. And as a state, it is our responsibility to ensure that we get the best possible arrangement for the people of Guyana. And in that regard, irrespective of what Mr. Jagdeo says, what information you got, what documents you're waving all over, we will do what is in the best interest of the people of Guyana. Thank you.